In this video, let's discuss about factors considered for water supply scheme. There are several factors we will consider while designing or while executing the water supply system to any particular community or area, village or city. The first thing is population forecast. So, as we discussed in the earlier videos, any facility which we are providing to the common man or to any community, it should be a futuristic approach. Means if the water demand is for a particular population or if the water demand is of particular million liter per day or LPCD per capita per demand, if we fulfill that particular demand, it is not good enough. We need to for give a forethought or think in a futuristic way so that the water demand or the demand for the further decades will also be fulfilled. Usually, we will consider the design period as 3 decades. 3 decades is nothing but 30 years. A decade means 10 years. 3 decades is nothing but 30 years. Any facility we are going to design for any town or city will be for 30 years. The second factor is rate of water demand. So, what is the required rate or water demand by the particular community to be specific? The public demand, the domestic water demand, and the fire demand and industrial demand, everything will be calculated. And to know the exact rate of demand, we will multiply the population by the demand by each individual. So it will give you the total demand of that particular area to design any particular water supply scheme. So what are the next factors? The next factor is quality of water. So quality of water which we will supply should be having minimum source of contamination or no contamination at all. So it should be ready to use. That is the definition of wholesome water. We must provide the wholesome water to the community or the city. And next factor is sources of water. Why sources is important for water supply scheme? Because if we identify or if we select a source from farther distance, it will increase the amount in conveyance. For example, if we supply the water for Mandi or Mysore city from a farther source, or we procure the water or we select the water resource from somewhere around 200 kilometers, so it will cost more than selecting a particular water supply water source from 100 kilometers. So we need to bring the water from two. If we are selecting the source from 200 kilometer distance, then the cost incurred for conveyance in 100 more kilometers will be more when compared to this nearer source. So we need to be careful while selecting the source also, because if we are not scientifically selecting it, if we are not selecting it in a conscious manner, then it will take a lot or it will incur a lot of amount or capital which will be against to any of the engineering aspects. Our main motto or aim is to provide the facility which is economical, not which is expensive. So the next criteria is survey of the area. Survey is important. Why survey is important? To just to get to know how the terrain is, whether it is made up of ridges or what it is made up of, what number of industries are there, what kind of people are there, whether if we are providing to a higher what to say well settled area, well to do area with lawns and with huge bungalows, we need to provide them much more water than we will provide to any other area. So the living standards of any particular area also decides the water demand, and along with the living standards, the industries and the auditorium, cinemas, and the swimming pools, we need to consider all these while surveying, because it also decides, or it decides the total quantum of water required, or to be technically saying the liter LPCD or quantity of million liter per day, how many millions of water required per day will be identified only by knowing, only after knowing all these criteria. So next is topography. Why topography is important? To design the particular kind of water supply scheme, topography is required. You will study in the fourth and fifth module the kind of different kinds of water supply system, whether to design the gravity kind of system, or whether to design the pumping system, or whether to design the combined system. Everything will be decided based on the area and density of population and topographical features. Next, or one more major factor is trends of future development. That means just like population forecasting, we also need to identify the trend, because let's consider Bangalore as a example. Then the trend is, or trend of people moving to Bangalore is more nowadays when compared to the former decades. So the future population or future generation is likely to move towards Bangalore because of the living standards and the environment and the amenities which is present in Bangalore, which will be not available in their particular cities. So after identifying the trend itself, we need to design any particular water supply scheme. And one more thing, or one more factor we need to keep in mind is overhead reservoir. Why overhead reservoir is important? Just to supply the water to the consumers in a constant rate without any troubles. So we need to design a network of distribution system with our overheads, and deciding their heights and volume. While deciding their heights and volume, we need to consider the entire population and demand and kind of distribution system we are adopting. So as we all know, we have seen to the overhead tanks are in your vicinity. Some of you may seen or observed the overhead tanks. So we can supply. Why we opt for overhead system when compared to the surface system? Because the head will give you the continuous flow for the areas in the lower lying regions. So these are all the factors we consider while designing the water supply scheme. Thank you.